The White Sox have agreed to a deal to acquire Jake Peavy from the Padres, subject to his approval. We are here to talk about it here on CBSSports.com. Glad to have you with us. Lauren Shehadi, Danny Knobler, our MLB columnist, with us. Danny, what is going on? San Diego shopped him around in the offseason to no avail. How did this deal get done? What's the word?
Well, the White Sox are struggling, and they have been. And Kenny Williams is not the kind of general manager to just sit around. He believes that the American League Central is very winnable right now. But he also believes that the White Sox cannot just sit around and wait, that they have had enough problems that they have to do something within the next month to get themselves going. And by getting Jake Peavy, if they are able to get him, and the only thing now waiting is Peavy to say yes, which is no guarantee. But if he were to go there, that would be a major shot in the arm for the White Sox. It would be a big, big deal because the White Sox, as good as they have been over the last few years, White Sox people have never felt like they had a true number one starter. Mark Burley has been their number one, but he doesn't really have number one stuff. And even though he wins 15 games a year and he's very consistent and he's off to a 6-1 start this year, they don't feel like he's the dominating type number one that they would like. Peavy is. In fact, one scout who just saw Peavy very recently told me, he said, look, Peavy is still one of the top 10 starting pitchers in baseball. And that would be big for the White Sox, and not just this year. It would be setting them up for the future. So it would be a major, major deal for the White Sox. And also it would be a major disappointment for some of the other teams that probably were hoping that they'd be able to trade for Peavy later in the year.
Absolutely, it would be. Like you said, they haven't had a guy like this. A White Sox official saying they haven't had a CC, they haven't had a Verlander, they've never had a Peavy. So clearly, Danny, there's a lot of faith there. How much of a splash can he make in your eyes?
How much could he make? He could make a big difference. But even with Jake Peavy, even if they are to have Jake Peavy in their rotation, White Sox people believe they still need two other things to happen for them to have a real chance in the Central Division. One would be obviously for the team to start hitting. They've scored the fewest runs in the American League so far. The White Sox believe that could happen because they know that as the summer gets going, as the weather warms up, the ball flies out of U.S. Cellular Field. They're a team that has always depended on the home run. And even though they made some changes in their lineup over the winter to try to become a more balanced team, they're still a team that depends on the home run with Jim Thome and Jermaine Dye and Paul Konerko. And it may be significant that Dye and Konerko each homered in the last two games. They might be getting going that way, the way they think they can. The other thing they know that has to happen for them to really make a run in the Central Division is for John Danks and Gavin Floyd to pitch more like they did last year and less like they have this year, although Danks did win last night. Even so, they need those guys because obviously Peavy would only start once every 5 days.
Sure, the White Sox kind of a surprise suitor, Danny. They're not the Braves. They're not the Cubs. This is a guy who has expressed in the past strong preference towards staying in the National League. If you're Peavy, do you go?
Well, you know what? He could stay around and wait and see if there's a better chance to go somewhere in the National League later. But the White Sox are a team that always tries to contend. Chicago is a city that it's a city that he has shown interest in going to in the past, although most of the attention was always focused on the Cubs. And he has some friends there. Scott Linebrink, who was a teammate of his with the Padres, now with the White Sox, Peavy's already talked to him about the possibility. So it's certainly possible that he would go, but people who know Peavy say, with Jake, you're never sure, and until he actually does say yes, nobody's going to know for sure.
All right, Danny. So if he does go, Paul Konerko, Jermaine Dye connecting on home runs this week, are the White Sox on an up and up? That's what I want to know.
Well, you know what? They have a real chance. Like I said, they still have issues, and the one thing about it is we don't know how that offense is going to come around, and we don't know how Floyd and Danks are going to come around. But the one thing about getting Peavy is because he's signed long-term, even if Peavy didn't bring the White Sox a championship this year, and certainly there's a chance he could, but even if he didn't, it would still be a deal that would make sense for the White Sox because it would set them up with a number one starter down the line for the future. And as we know, as we said earlier, the White Sox under Kenny Williams always try to win every year. They don't take years off and try to rebuild. That's just the way they do things, and Kenny's very upfront about saying that's the way he does things. So if it doesn't help them win this year, well, there's always the chance that it makes the White Sox a real contender next year.
There's no time to take years off, Danny, is there? White Sox have agreed to a deal to acquire Jake Peavy from the Padres, subject to his approval. Danny Knobler, thanks for your time.
No problem, Lauren, anytime.
We'll keep you posted with an update on this story. For Danny Knobler, I'm Lauren Shehadi. Thanks for watching.